My name is
He had a posterior cervical fusion. It was known as a Harms construct, where they were doing lateral mass screws at C1, and they were doing it was known as a PARS screw at C2. And so the idea behind this was to place screws at C1 and C2 that have a ability to put a rod in and a cross link in order to facilitate stabilization there, and then bone could be placed down adjacent to facilitate a fusion. The risk can vary depending on the experience of the person performing it and the use of adjuncts. So certainly, if one uses image guidance in this procedure, then that enhances the safety of the screw placement, because you have real-time feedback with where you're going with the screw, rather than a blind placement, just using anatomical landmarks. It's like driving with a GPS versus not having a GPS. You certainly have a little bit more certainty of your navigation if you have something that is a navigation aid. And so if the surgery is done without any kind of supplemental image-guided or, if you will, GPS. And there are other things that can be used as well, like intraoperative fluoroscopy and whatnot. It appears that one of the screws went through the vertebral artery and completely occluded it, resulting in inadequate blood flow from the vertebral artery, and ultimately resulted in the patient developing a cerebellar stroke. The vertebral artery sits in a structure called the transverse foramen, and it appears that one of the screws went too far lateral, and it went straight through and transected the vertebral artery, and at that time it stopped all flow in that vertebral artery from going further to supply the brain and brain stem that it normally would provide blood flow to.
How clearly is the screw shown in the transverse foramen?
Crystal clear. Yeah, I mean, there's no ambiguity whatsoever. It's a smack dab in the middle of the transverse foramen.
And how certain are you that the screw going through the transverse foramen then interfered with the vertebral artery?
Well, there's no flow demonstrated above the vertebral artery when you keep scrolling in the CTA, which is done in slices. So if you look at the CTA before the surgery, the vertebral artery existed. And if you look at the CTA after there's some vertebral artery that's shown below the level of the screw, but above the screw there's no further blood flow in the vertebral artery. So it's very easy to conclude without any guessing that the vertebral artery was completely occluded, because you don't see any blood flow in it after the surgery. And when the screw has gone through the structure where the vertebral artery lives, which is the transverse foramen, there's no longer any blood flow distal or beyond that.
How certain are you that the interference with the blood flow caused Mr. stroke?
Highly certain. Let me make this clear. It's either the occlusion of the artery where no blood flow was able to go beyond that, or when it went in, it damaged the artery and it caused a temporary dissection, which produced some clot that then went downstream before the artery occluded. But either of those is extremely likely to produce a stroke, regardless of the exact mechanism. And I don't think you could hypothesize other causes of this stroke. I mean, it's a pretty simple recipe for what's going to cause a stroke. So, from a detective standpoint, it's clearly the smoking gun.
Does placing the screw through the transverse foramen rise to the level of a deviation of the standard of care?
Yes, all the techniques described even with the use of anatomic landmarks, techniques to avoid hitting the vertebral artery.
And then the next day he didn't wake up. And they didn't know why he didn't wake up. So that's when they did, I guess that was the day they did the angiogram. I don't know, but they certainly did x-rays. And they showed these two big areas in the cerebellum of strokes, which weren't there before.
Yeah. How long was he in a coma?
Well, he was intubated 8 days, 9 days, and he was still pretty unresponsive at that point.
When you got home, how was life different?
I know that eating was better. Eating
With what?
was better. Better. B-E-D-D-E-R. Better.
P-P-E-R?
B.
B.
E.
E.
D.
P.
D. He did well.
I don't know.
Better.
How were things different when you came home from the villa?
Four was better.
Before it was better.
Oh, better. It was better, yeah.
And my baby
It's on film.
was here for me.
He was not walking, really. I mean, he maybe took a couple steps. He was primarily in a wheelchair all day. And eventually it moved on to a walker, but there it was a wheelchair. And he had some incontinency. I mean, it was very different.
One of Mr. strongest present symptoms is speech difficulties. Is a stroke consistent with difficulty speaking?
People with cerebellar strokes oftentimes have very difficult time with their speech. There can be speech impairment as a result of a cerebellar stroke.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I was in the Air Force in France. I
Special.
Special, okay.
Was that right?
It's special.
Where have we gone? We went to
Paris.
Scandinavia, we've been to Paris, we've been to England, Key West.
And gun.
You know, we went to the movies, we had theater tickets, we had jazz concert tickets. What else? What about dancing?
I did. With
A little
you.
bit. A little bit. But we did take lessons for a little while. And
Foxtrot. And Bomba.
What were some of the things you liked to do before the accident, like hobbies and activities?
I play the accordion. And I went on the computer to record music.
Does drive?
he does not. He sold his car.
But how about the dancing? Are you dancing now?
No, I don't have the coordination to dance.
He doesn't have the coordination to dance.
Do you miss that?
Yeah, I miss dancing with you.
The one thing that and I really had was this ability to talk. We would talk all the time. So those conversations are difficult. And I really miss that.
I want to talk in my old voice again.
Hi, it's me. I'm just wondering how you're doing. So enjoy yourself and give me a call when you can.
What frustrates you the most?
When I'm with people and one person doesn't understand me.
I worry that he's going to fall. I really worry about falling. I have visions of him falling and being taken to a hospital and starting all over. Well, I look at him and it makes me very sad that this is somebody that was interested in life, and he still is. I'm not making it sound like he isn't, but there are barriers, and I think this is a shame that this happened. I mean, there's things that happen to us that are out of our control, and this was a mistake. So music is a big thing in his life.
I can't believe the accordion.
Yeah,
No.
he has trouble with the accordion, with his fingers and dexterity.